I always believed in God, trusted God. I prayed, and it was usually, that typical God, get me out of this, or do this for me, or do that for me, or, that kind of thing. I was working as a CFO accountant for a company, a private company, and I was, managing everything, all the finances, a lot of the operations and such. I was struggling with what I was going to do. And I can remember sitting in the parking lot and making this decision that I was going to take money from my company to pay my bills. I did it, and it was horrible. But then it becomes this thing. So I was incarcerated. I was sentenced to 2 years in Marin County Jail for embezzlement. And so anyway, so that was the official crime. It was really just, again, it was based on me trying to keep up appearances and trying to, live this life that I thought was what I needed and what would make me happy and what would make my children happy. And it wasn't. It wasn't. But so anyway, so I decided that was the route to go. And then one thing led to another, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger to the end. I mean, I was having fantasies of like, I should just call the police and just tell them what I'm doing. It was like, get me out of this. I don't want to do this anymore. It was painful. It was painful. So it was kind of a funny thing when you get caught, you're kind of like, oh, thank God that's over. So I was living in another state at the time. I was extradited here. Then I was, in Marin County Jail, and I was there for a couple of weeks. And at this point, everybody knew what was going on. My family, it was very public. Everybody was okay until the actual sentencing. It was like, everybody just dropped off. And I think everyone was in such shock, and they didn't know how to process it. They just didn't know what to say or do. I went through a period of not speaking with my family while I was incarcerated. The only person I was speaking with was my mother, who was just a saint through the whole experience. And it was really hard on my children to, not only was it so public, then they had to kind of figure out, who I was. Well, what was that about? I've always, as I said, prayed to God, and, I didn't stop when I went to jail, and just said, what are you doing? It was all about, what is God doing to me? What is going on? This can't be happening. Once I kind of made peace with the fact that, and not even peace, once I just sort of accepted a little bit that you're here, you're not going anywhere, I thought, well, what is the purpose of this? I know that being in jail is punishment. It's the consequences of your crime. However, what am I going to get out of this? And so I prayed for that. And I asked God, what is it that I am supposed to do now? And I decided to read the Bible. I had never read the Bible before. And I picked up the Bible and I read it from page 1, the introduction, the printing press, you name it, copyrights, I read it. I read Genesis. And as I was reading Genesis, which is the beginning, I got to the story of Joseph. And Joseph's story is, his brothers basically sold him off as a slave to the Egyptians. And they were done with him. They were sick of him, and they wanted to get rid of him. And so he ends up in Egypt. He's a slave. He wasn't a slave. He was a prisoner. Through it, he just had this really great attitude, and kind of like just kept helping where he could. And had he not been there, several nations, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people would have died, because he was there and he was able to make some decisions in how to handle a famine. And so had he not been there, these people, the situation wouldn't have turned out the way it did, which was positive. So I decided that I was going to, there was a reason for me to be where I was, and that I was going to just listen to God and do my time and make a choice to do something with it, and not just sit and watch TV and read magazines, so at that point I started reading the Bible regularly. I was looking to speak with a chaplain. It was kind of during COVID, and everyone had, we weren't having visitors, and professionals weren't really coming in. The only ones that were coming in were Christian scientists, or Christian Science chaplains. And so I put a request in. I had read a book, and it was a pilot who had been shot down in the war, and he was in a POW camp. While he was imprisoned, he just kept referring back to these scriptures, and he said that was really what got him through that horrible time. And he kept referring to Science and Health with Keys to the Scriptures. And I thought, what's that? So when I put in my request to see the chaplain, I had asked, as if this was some, can you find this book for me? I put it in, and then it showed up, and I was, what is this? And I met with a chaplain, and he came in, and his, the way he did things were different. He just sort of let me talk. He kind of introduced Christian Science to me, and then he kind of let me investigate it on my own. I couldn't get it. And so I used to ask him questions like, who is this Mary Baker Eddy? What? I don't understand this. And he would, refer to her and say, well, when she had this, and I said, what happened to her? Why was she so sick? And then finally he said, I'm going to bring you a book. And he brought me a biography of Mary Baker Eddy. And I read it in like a week. And I got it. I read her story. I understood at that point. Oh, she just went back to basics. Well, the chaplain was awesome. I mean, talk about a dedicated, guy, and just every single week he came. And sometimes we were always talking about the Bible and different ways for me to go deeper. And I just really felt like this was what I was supposed to do. Here I am. I'm going to study the Bible, study God's word, and let God guide me, and we'll go from there. One day, one of the deputies came to me and she said, hey, the sergeant wants to give you an early release, and that's 3 weeks away, and so I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, what do you mean it's 3 weeks away? Are you no? And so I was really having anxiety about it, but it was really stressful, and all I could think was, I can't do this. I'm not ready to do this. I did have a substance abuse issue, which was alcohol and opiates. And when I got out, I was going to be living with my mother, and she was actually going to be going away for the weekend, like the weekend after I got out. And I thought, oh, this is horrible. Here you go. Here's your house. And all I could think was, what if I, decide that I'm going to use again? I'm going to do this. I'm going to ruin everything. And he kept saying, you're not, I can tell you're ready. So it came, and I was nervous and I didn't want to leave. Strange, I can't explain that, but other than I just became very comfortable in my surroundings, and I was coming out to a world that I really didn't know anymore. I'd heard all these things about the pandemic and everything else. So anyway, so I got out, and that morning my mother picked me up, and it was like, oh, can we just drive? I don't want to be inside. I just want to be outside. My sons reached out right away. They actually didn't even know I was home. We were going into the holidays. I didn't want a bunch of people to, oh no, now we've got this on top of the holidays, and we've got to figure out how to navigate through her being home. It was like, oh, I just don't want to put anybody through this. And they just happened to reach out to my mom and said, how do we contact her? Because I hadn't had contact with them other than writing, since I was in jail and for the 2 years. And it was just so strange that that moment, they would pick that. And I had only been home for a few days. So they called finally. I called them back, and they came over, and we spent like 5 hours together. And then that was kind of it. And we've been texting and having dinner and doing, and we had some conversations. They're boys. I don't know. They've just kind of said, you know what? We're good. We want you to be good. Let's move on. It was really interesting. One of the things and this was something that the chaplain had told me, that other people may have a harder time than me, not knowing what to say or how to handle it. And it was very true. I had discussed this while I was in jail, was taking the furthering education for Christian Science. After I read her biography, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And then I got out and thought, okay, I'm going to take a break and see if I really want to do that. And it's, really been something that I'm looking forward to. And so I've kind of been going through that process of signing up for that, which I'm really, really excited about. It takes place in July. So I'm doing that and doing a lot of preparing for that, reading for that. I don't want to have not good anymore. I want to wake up, and it feels so good to wake up and just know, just to have that feeling in you that, okay, whatever today is, it's going to be okay. Because I know that God is guiding me. I feel so much love from God. If I could give it away, I would, because when you feel that, you really know it's going to be okay, whatever it is. And I would love that for everyone to have that feeling. And if I could bottle it and give it away, I would.